If you're feeling stiff and slow around the kit, and your fills are sloppy and you're constantly hitting a speed barrier, then this lesson is for you. I don't want you feeling like a total amateur when you're playing fills, all because your kit navigation just is rough. You can solve this by avoiding this big mistake and instead employing the steps I'm going to give you so that you're smoothly executing fills and confidently nailing your favorite songs. You can do this. Hey, welcome to the Non-Glamorous Drummer. I'm so excited that you're hanging out with me today. I help beginner and intermediate drummers become the musicians they're made to be, and the musicians who sound great and who actually people want to listen to and have in their band. And we do this by teaching you the most important core drumming skills that get you the biggest results in the practice room. And hey, speaking of results, or lack thereof, if you're a drummer at any level who feels stuck and you're just not making progress, you've practiced a bunch of things, but you don't really know what to work on next, you don't really have a path to follow, I've got you covered. Download my Avoid Getting Stuck Progress Blueprint. This is the 6 steps to pro drumming PDF e-guide that literally lays out your entire drumming journey into 6 phases. The first phase is the beginner phase. The final one is the studio drummer phase. And what's really cool is you'll be able to pinpoint exactly which phase you're in now. It'll be easy to figure out. And then you'll have action steps for leveling up to the next phase. This means that you have a path to follow. You have clarity, you have direction. That is how you avoid getting stuck. You stay out of ruts, you continue growing, and you reach your goals and your dreams on the drums. That's what I want for you. I'm pretty sure that's what you want too, or you wouldn't be here right now. So go grab that e-guide, it's totally free. All right, let's get on with today's lesson. The big mistake keeping you from fluid kit navigation. You ready for this? This is really simple. Here it is. Not twisting your shoulders, or your torso basically, so that you're always facing whatever you're playing. See, we've been led to believe, I know I've been led to believe over the course of my learning the drums, we've all kind of been taught that less motion is better. Less is more, we need to not waste motion, so we need to not move more than we need to. And I think a lot of this comes from the jazz drumming school of thought, where we know about all these jazz drummers, and we've watched these jazz drummers where they're just playing all around the kit going crazy, but their face, like their head is not moving, their shoulders are not moving, they're all just right here. And that works okay when you're playing jazz, especially if you're doing brushes and it's a lot of this lateral side-to-side motion rather than up and down. And when you're playing jazz, you've got all your drums kind of low, cymbals angled down, so everything's right here and you can reach things pretty easily. But we kind of have to take a different approach when we're playing rock, because with rock we have a much more up and down, a vertical kind of motion instead of a lateral kind of motion. And we have to have things spaced apart a little bit more because we're playing louder and we need these clean motions going specifically from drum to drum, cymbal to cymbal. And plus we need the isolation for recording purposes. That's another topic, but we want to make sure there's room for mics and everything. So when we're playing rock, generally things are more spaced apart and we're having to think bigger motions. And that's where we end up running into trouble if we're trying to maintain that mindset of don't move my shoulders, don't look like I'm playing because I've been told that motion is bad. And that's where we're running into some problems. So here's what we're getting into today. First, we're going to talk about the 2 movements that make fluid navigation much easier. And then we're going to talk about 3 exercises to make smooth kit navigation second nature. So we'll talk about these movements, these motions we need to do, and then the exercises to make it happen. So let's dive into this. So something interesting, I don't know if you've ever thought of this, but when you're sitting at your drum set, if you're facing the direction you ought to face, which is the way my sticks are pointed right now, you should be facing toward your snare, facing this way, not toward your kick. So that means if you want to face your audience, you actually need to twist the kit around a little bit on stage if you're playing a gig. But keeping this in mind, you should be facing your snare, because the snare is the center of your kit. That's where you spend most of your time. So you don't want to be facing anything else by default. So by default, we're facing our snare because we've got left leg here, right leg here. Hope all that makes sense. So think about this. If you draw a line right here, the majority of your drum set is actually to your right. Versus to your left, there's not much, unless you've got an extra side snare or an extra tom over here, which some people do. If you've got extra toms down here, like 2 floor toms, you've definitely got way more stuff over on the right side of your kit than your left. And the challenge that we end up running into, with most of us having a weak hand, that weak hand being our left hand, sometimes the left hand actually struggles to reach the stuff that's over here on the right side of the kit. So we've got all this stuff on the right side that our right hand can reach no problem. It makes sense because most of us are right-handed. It feels natural to have the majority of the kit on our right side. But if we're playing singles and we need the left hand to get over there, suddenly we start running into trouble. And so a lot of drummers, when they're playing, moving around the kit, that left hand just doesn't feel natural. It feels kind of awkward by the time it's down here on the floor tom, or floor toms if you have two. Right hand is totally fine, of course, because this is right here on your right side. But left hand tends to just feel kind of clumsy, and it just doesn't make sense. You'd rather your left hand stay over here, right? So what we've got to do, besides, I guess one solution would be the whole method. This is kind of a jazz philosophy of, play the right side of your kit only with your right hand, left side of your kit only with your left hand. And in jazz, that can work because you're doing a lot of these lighter, quicker kind of motions. But in rock, we do a lot more singles. There's a lot of big singles in rock, and so we really have to use both hands. So keeping that in mind, if that is our school of thought here, that's our mindset, then what we've got to practice are motions that allow our left arm to more easily get to where it needs to go. Because I can think of cases with students where we've realized that a weak hand is not actually the problem. The problem is that their left arm is having a hard time reaching. And on top of that, we also want to practice left arm paths of motion around the kit. Like, where is our left arm going to go most of the time? And specifically practice those movements. So here is our motion number one. Motion number one I want you to do, and wherever you're sitting right now, if you're at your kit or at a desk chair or even on your sofa, you can practice doing this if you sit up straight. Just practice twisting your torso. Like, practice going like this. See how it feels. This is a common exercise just to loosen up a little bit. I know for some people their back will start popping when they do it. And so, of course, be careful. But for me, it always helps me feel a lot looser if I do some of this, if I do some twisting, because this is the kind of thing we want to do. We want to be able to twist our shoulders and twist our torso so that without, spinning on our stool, we can more easily face, our chest can more easily face what we're playing. So that simple motion, this right here, can really go a long way. And it's not that we don't know how to do this. Obviously, you can sit there and go like this. I could have my 2-year-old do this, and she would do this just fine. But it's a lot harder when you're trying to play on the drum set and you're not used to doing these motions, and suddenly it's like, oh wait, I need to remember to twist. That's where we're getting today, because we have to make sure that that is natural. So the next thing I want you to do to start really applying this is just grab a stick in the left hand and practice playing back and forth between whatever the farthest left component is on your kit and the farthest right. In my case, this is a pretty minimal setup. This is pretty small, and I try to keep things as narrow as possible, which is another alternate solution to this whole problem. Just have as narrow of a kit as possible. But I'm going to practice going between my hi-hat and my floor tom. So that means I want to make sure I face my hi-hat right here, and then I want to twist a little bit so I face my floor tom as I'm going back and forth. Just like that. Practice doing that. Then I want you to ask yourself the question, because we kind of have to play devil's advocate here and make sure we're also not going overboard with the twisting. Ask yourself, okay, do I need to twist that much? If I'm going all the way to like a second floor tom over here, yes, I probably need to twist. But okay, what if it's just a hi-hat that's right here and then a floor tom that's right here by my right knee? Can I do this smoothly and naturally without twisting? So ask yourself that, because we got to try that too. And the answer is yes. It works just fine that way. The question becomes, all right, does it feel weird having to reach your left arm out like this? How far are you having to go? Could it feel a little bit more natural with just a little bit of twist? And that's where the subtlety comes in, because sometimes just a little bit of subtle twist can go a long way. We're not trying to do this dramatic exercise, like we're, doing pool aerobics. The goal is not these big awkward motions, because at that point we're going overboard and we need to conserve motion and not waste motion, because that's going to hinder us rather than help us. But a little bit of motion can go a long way. So here's what I would do if I'm playing back and forth between floor tom and hi-hat. And doing that, I wasn't really thinking about it. There was just a little bit of motion, just an inch or two. Not much, and that's what you might find is perfect. So I want you to find that. Find what amount of shoulder motion feels just right. Nothing over the top, but just a little bit, just to help out that left arm so it doesn't feel like an awkward reach. And again, you can use more motion if you're reaching further over, or again, if you've got a bigger setup, if you're doing the Neil Peart thing, maybe you grew up in the 80s, and so you've got the crazy drum set. Okay, this is gonna be a little bit more challenging for you, but you're gonna have to sit there and practice, all right, all the way over here to all the way over here. But if you can do that, and then maybe even do it with your right hand too, just to practice that if you've got a huge kit, that's going to really help you start feeling more comfortable. Now, 3 exercises to do, really to just continue this discussion, because like I mentioned a minute ago, there's kind of a disconnect between like learning a motion and learning a technique and then actually using it in music, because you could sit here and you could practice these things and practice these motions back and forth and then go play a gig this weekend and it all goes out the window because you're busy focusing on remembering the songs and focusing on helping out the guitar player that forgot the lick and then can't play in time. On a gig, there's so many other things going on in your head, and even if you're just, in your basement playing a song, there's a lot of other things you're thinking about, and so it's easy to not focus on the technique and motion that we so badly need to focus on. So that's where exercises come in. This is a general thing across the board, by the way. That's the purpose of exercises on the drums, is to bridge that gap between a technique that we're trying to solidify and its application in music, because we want it to be on autopilot. We don't want to have to think about this stuff when we're playing songs. So in order to get there, we've got to repetitively practice, drive these things into our brain so that we're packing it away, not having to think about it. Exercises are how we do this. That's the purpose of an exercise. So the first thing we want to do to really solidify the whole motion thing, so really we could have put this in our motion category a minute ago and made this motion number 3, but practice artificially rebounding your sticks. Now this is something we have a specific lesson on here on the channel. I'll link it below. The whole idea is practice doing this, like playing on your leg, where instead of hitting your leg, because that'll hurt, don't hurt yourself, instead of hitting your leg and like driving the stick into your thigh, just tap your thigh and pop it right back up. That means that when the stick hits, you actually have your grip a little bit more firm, like fingers are on the stick, and then you can snap your wrist up to pop the stick up. All the details are in that other lesson, so go check that out if you want more detail on that. But practice this kind of loose, open, artificial rebound motion, because obviously there's no rebound on my thigh right here. But I can do this right here. I'm manually creating the up and down motion. That's powerful because when we're playing rock, most of the time our drums are tuned low and we don't have a lot of that natural up and down motion. Yes, drumming academia tells us to use rebound, always use rebound, and that's true. We want to use rebound whenever we can, and whenever you're playing jazz, so again, that jazz school of thought, you can use rebound and lightly float along things. But when you're playing rock, a lot of times that just doesn't work. If we're honest, you can't just rely on rebound when you're playing around the toms, especially when you get down to floor toms where there's little to no rebound. So what you're having to do is extract that tiny bit of rebound that's there and lift the stick so that you're creating these motions that allow you to then navigate around the kit much more smoothly. That's so important. So that's your first thing to practice. And for more detail on this, check out that additional lesson. But practice just doing this artificial rebound, just these slow singles. You're just moving the sticks up and down. Also, you don't even have to hit your leg. You can just airplay. You should be able to do this hitting nothing. Imagine there's a drum like right here. Just go like this. Keeping that in mind as a prerequisite there, as something that we're going to apply to everything else we do. Exercise number 2 is practice the 5 paths on my kit, of travel that the left hand can take from the snare or from the hi-hat. So count up how many drums and cymbals you have on your drum set. If you've got the Neil Peart kit, there's going to be a lot, so have fun with this. But if you have a minimalist setup like myself, you've just got your 2 toms and a ride and a crash, then let's say we start here on the hi-hat. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 possible places we could go. So what I want to do is practice going to each of those locations from the far left side of my kit with my left hand, and just practice employing not only that little bit of torso twist we talked about, but also that artificial rebound. So we're always moving in these arc motions. Like that, I skipped over the crash because it's like right here. So however you want to do this exercise, how you do it and how many places you go is less important than the fact that you're practicing the arc motions, the artificial rebound, and then that slight twisting motion so that you're smoothly and comfortably going anywhere on your kit. Now remember, you can practice this the other way. Usually left hand's the challenge, and it's harder to reach the left hand to the right side than the right hand to the left side. You can also practice this with your right hand and practice going from the far right side of your kit to the far left to each possible location. You can do this however you want to. And by the time you've done this, if you're working that artificial rebound, that smooth up and down air playing, and you've got the torso twist, the shoulder twist becoming second nature, then we're going to pull all these things together for our exercise number 3, which is just simple singles around the kit. So simple, nothing complicated here, but this is where the rubber meets the road and we really apply everything we've been doing so far. So if we start on the snare, that's all we're gonna do. Now, if you have 3 times, you could do ga 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 gung 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 gung. So for a full measure like that, 4/16 on each drum. In my case, I'll just do the second half of the measure here on the floor tom. So I'll spend more time down here, which might be good anyways, because we need to log in that practice of being down here. And by the way, if you are a fellow church drummer, I've been playing worship music in church for 12, 13 years now, and a lot of modern worship music involves a lot of toms. And so if you're playing in church, you're doing a lot of tom stuff, this is really going to be helpful for you because you need to get comfortable living down here on the floor tom. There are so many songs, so many worship songs where most of the time I'm right here. And I might sometimes reach over and hit a backbeat. Sometimes we go into a groove, but so many songs, there's so much tom stuff. And so you've got to be comfortable living right here, even though we're facing this way. And so that's the thing, you know, playing drums is all about ergonomic compromise where you're not always going to be exactly super comfortable with whatever you're hitting the most, depending on the song. We want the snare to be in the middle because the snare is our backbeat. And for some songs, that totally makes sense. But for other songs, you might be living down here. And that's fine. That's why we want to get comfortable with left hand being here, twisting our shoulders just a little bit so that we feel like we're actually facing it. So here's how this exercise might look. What we could do, when we get to the end of the floor tom notes, we could replace the last floor tom note on the of 4 with a kick note. So then we can bring our hands back over to the snare. It'll just look like this. Start out very slow, don't do an cello rondo like I just did. That was just for the sake of demonstration, showing you how as you get faster, when these motions become second nature, it doesn't get more difficult as you get faster. But spend a lot of time very slow. I recommend 60 beats per minute. When you're doing these alternating 16ths, start off at 60. Go very slowly. Remember, we're thinking intentionally about smooth up and down motion and then smooth torso twist. Those are the 2 motions we want to have in the back of our head until they become habit, because they will, and then you won't have to think about them. As you go faster, those things will naturally happen. You won't have to think, oh yeah, face left, oh yeah, twist right. It'll all be natural, it'll all be habit. That's the idea. Remember, that's the purpose of the exercises, to solidify habits so that you can do all these things on the fly, on a gig, in the heat of the moment, while you're thinking about something else. You've established this foundation, and it's going to help support everything else you do, because the whole idea here, we want to go from choppy fills that hit a speed wall to fluid, effortless playing around the kit. And this is how you do it. Learn the motions. So learn the torso twist, artificial rebound. Check out the artificial rebound in the description for more on that. Learn the motions, practice the exercises, and then do this every day. Do it consistently. Take action on this. Spend 10, 15, 30 minutes if possible, several times a week, if not every day, and you will build the habits. You will grow in this area, and you will feel so much more comfortable moving around the kit. And as I always say, comfort equals confidence. And when you're confident moving around the kit, that comes across in your playing. Confidence is a hard thing to quantify. It's hard to put a value on that. And it's hard to really say how to teach that or how to instill that. But a great way to instill confidence in yourself and your abilities as a drummer is to get to where you just feel more comfortable doing something. That means you're going to more confidently go into a fill. You're going to more confidently lead the band and nail songs. And all of that is because you were diligent and you were an action taker and you practiced this stuff. So I believe in you. You can do this. Head to the practice room and work on this. So what I want to know from you, tell me in the comments, what's keeping you from smooth kit navigation? Can you pinpoint what that thing is? I always want you to do some self-analysis. That's why I ask you these questions at the end of a lesson. I want you to do some self-analysis and think through, what are my weaknesses? What are my strengths? What am I doing well, but what can I improve? So what will you practice next? Do you need to work on motions, twisting up and down, artificial rebound? Maybe you need to spend some time on that lesson. Do you just need to actually take the time to practice smooth singles around your kit? Maybe maybe you were like me. So back when I was in high school and I was first really trying to get good at the drums and really learning and taking lessons, I got good at playing quiet, fast stuff all around the kit, and it was a sloppy mess. What took me a long time was actually slowing down, literally slowing down, and practicing gung, 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 getting clean sounds that actually sounded good. That was not something I did until years later, when things came full circle and I realized I sound terrible, I need to sound better. And that helped me sound so much more professional, focusing on the slow stuff. So even if you're a more advanced drummer and you've been playing for decades, maybe you just need to slow things down and focus on your clean precision, going from drum to drum, hitting things well, getting good sounds. That could be what gets you to the next level. So figure out where you're at, figure out what you need to practice next, take action on it. I believe in you. You can do this. You can become the drummer you're made to be. And hey, if you're like, Steven, I have no clue where I'm at. I don't know what level I'm at. I'm somewhere in the middle. I've got the guide for you, the one I was talking about earlier, that Avoid Getting Stuck, 6 Steps to Pro Drumming Free e-guide. It's in the description. It's just a simple PDF that lays out the stages that I believe every drummer goes through on the journey from beginner to advanced studio drummer, basically. And what's cool about this is you can pinpoint which stage you're in. You'll easily be able to figure out, oh, I'm a stage 3 jamming drummer. And once you figure that out, you know the action steps to follow to improve in that stage and then to move on to the next stage. This is your shortcut to success. This is your blueprint to progress. It's going to help you out so much and bring so much clarity so that you're making progress and you always have a plan for where to go. Because a plan equals results, and results, that's what we want, right? I want you to become the drummer you're made to be. So go check that out. Hey, I've enjoyed hanging out today. I hope this lesson has been super valuable to you. Know that no matter what, you can do this. I will see you on the next lesson. Stay non-glamorous.